everyone. We're Team 5, and our project was the IT Alliance portal for the IT Alliance here at the University of Southern Indiana. Um, we have 4 members on our team. I am Josh. I'm a CS major, and I mainly worked on documentation for the project.
I'm Joe. I'm a CS major and I do development.
I'm Darren. I'm CS as well, and I was working on development.
I'm Bassem Alamer, and I'm CIS major. I'm in charge of documentation. So we're sponsored by Windy Voltage, and I want to talk about IT Alliances at first. IT Alliances is an advisory group to college business made up of senior information technology executive who advise the computer information system and computer science facility and students. So our project is to create an application that can store, present, and organize CS and CIS senior project based on semester. Um, the user of the application would be current and potential clients for clients for CS and CIS to propose or edit projects. Students will be able to upload their names, brief description documents for their projects. Desired features, we will have login to edit or update projects, priority system for projects, a way to preview past projects with images. This can be beneficial for current students. They could use this as reference to guide them for their new projects. Application contains 3 parts. For secure functionality, they will have access to a web by entering username and password. They will also be allowed to use the app to add or edit senior projects that are in progress. In secure functionality, they will be allowed to view USI senior projects by semester or type of project. The user signs in as a guest with the limited options, so they will be mostly viewing the projects. Management tools for administrator, they will be able to edit or remove or add projects. Administrator also should be able to view what has been added, removed, or added by and by whom.
Some of the technologies that we used during this project, we did all of our development in Visual Studio Code. Our framework of choice was Vue. We had a few reasons for that. One just being the simplicity of the framework in terms of other frameworks like Angular or React. It was quite simple to learn for all of us. So that's the reason we went with that. We communicated throughout this project with Slack. Has a lot of great functionality to create different channels for everybody to help sort out the documents that we wanted to share with each other. We use GitHub. Our database is in MySQL. That is being hosted on, our database is being hosted on a WAMP server. Ideally, we're hosting the project locally for this demonstration, but if everything would have panned out without all this coronavirus stuff, we would have definitely liked to get the application on WAMP as well, on the WAMP server as well. And then we use PHP to help communicate that data back and forth between the local server and the WAMP server.
So with the use cases, it was pretty simple at first. Basically, what was required is at first, all we needed was a profile to be able to do everything. So on the left, the first admin is used as an example for like Wendy. She'll be the first admin for this, and then whenever she deems anybody has the responsibility for it, she can give them access to it as well. And then they have access to everything, being able to modify documents, delete documents, or place them in a different like area of the website. The second use case would be the sponsor, which they would also have a username and password that they would need to go by because they do have a bit more access than just a guest user. This would be the actual sponsor of the project, and they would be able to upload any documents that they deem important to the project and modify. And then the last use case would be the user or the guest being able to just come into the web application anytime they deem, but only being able to view projects, not being able to edit or scribe anything of the sort, only being able to view.
Sorry, that was me. So one of the problems that we ran into was we initially tried to use Okta for our authentication. We had done a little bit of research, and it seemed like that was the simplest third party to use for authentication. We had some issues with the redirect after the authentication. However, we did end up fixing that. Then we ran into another issue when they rolled out an update shortly about a month ago that kind of broke our routing. So Joe was actually able to fix that by, instead of using Okta, he ended up implementing some authentication within our database itself. So we ended up not going with Okta, but we learned a lot about it.
So before spring break, we were at the point where we were trying to connect to the database, the MySQL database. And initially we had it as a standalone MySQL application. And we were using a PHP file, which is a scripting, it's like a scripting language that is what accesses the database and performs all the SQL functions and retrieves the data. And from the website, we were trying to find the file, we had to perform a function to find the PHP file to access the database, but for whatever reason, it couldn't find the file, even though everything, all the documentation we were looking at told us to put the file in the same directory as the website. So eventually we found out that we had to host the PHP file on a separate server. So that's when we started using WAMP. And WAMP has its own MySQL application that is much easier to use. So we're using that, and then we also have the PHP file hosted on a separate port, and our website accesses that PHP file, which connects to the database. And then after getting all that fixed, we wanted to do some file transfer so we could have pictures for the projects and stuff, and PDFs, Word files, whatever. And it's mostly going well, but to store files in a database, you have to convert them to blob format. And after converting them, you can upload them directly to the database, which worked. But when we retrieved them back, they had lost the data. And at this point, this was like a week or two ago when we were pretty much running out of time, and we left all the stuff in there that we were using for testing, just kind of hidden for future use. And so there's no files storage right now, just the data, just the rows in the database.
And for the lessons learned on the documentation side, this was my personally first time like actually working with just pure documentation. Usually as a CS major with the software development class, there really wasn't as much documentation in that class. It was all just getting the program done and displaying it. So figuring out that and learning all of that, that was one big thing I've learned. Working in a software development group atmosphere it's my second time doing this as in a classroom setting, and it's really helpful to kind of get a different mind around it rather than just working on everything on your own. And yeah, working during a global pandemic isn't exactly the best thing is for a group project, but I think we stuck our way through it, and I think we got through it pretty well.
So I think is the same thing with me. I haven't been documenting before for projects, and it was kind of challenging at the beginning to understand what the project was about. And we went successfully, I guess, and I've learned a lot. Like, was it was challenging with during this pandemic. We survived.
And, for coding, we learned a lot about just how to use Vue.js from the ground up. Um, I know now how to have a bunch of different servers running and port forwarding um, and then using PHP is a very helpful tool because it can be integrated into anywhere really into your code.
A couple of the challenges that I faced were just having to communicate effectively with the documentation team. That was a bit of a challenge. Usually, I do all of my own documentation, and a lot of it can be done in my head, which is definitely not the best route to go. But communicating that with the documentation team was difficult, but it helped a lot. And then also, I learned how to integrate Okta, even though it didn't end up working in the end. I learned how to integrate it, and it's something that I kind of want to do on my own projects from here on out, which is really cool.
All right, time for the demo. Josh, you wanna?
Joe's gonna share his screen now to show us the demo.
Okay. So here is the home page for the website. It's got a carousel of images, and right now this is just some files I just pulled from past years, but this can be updated in the future, and it has links so you can um, open the links and go to the article, and that has forward and back. You can scroll through, and it's mostly sized well. It does a little bit of a screen flickering sometimes, but if you go to the projects page, there's nothing at first, but you can choose a semester, and right now it's automatically logged in as just a basic user where all you can do is view, and you can see each project is within a card. It's a Vue Bootstrap tool, which there's so many, and that's why Vue is so great because it has all these functions that are just built in that work really well. So you've got the client here, and if you hover over it, it shows their email, and then you can just click it, and it sends an email to them. And then you got the project name, the client, the team members, t-shirt sizes. So like if the members in the group want project t-shirts, they can indicate their size. The status of the project, the priority, and those are or the priority is for sorting, which we haven't integrated sorting yet. I just didn't have time with the hold up with the database connection. But you got the start date and the projected completion date, and then these are required fields, but the completed date isn't required because it hasn't been completed yet. And then you got a description here. Everything is kind of on the left side because over here is where like pictures will go or something, but that hasn't been fixed yet. And then all this data is just kind of placeholder for now until the actual clients want to put whatever information they want to. And then I've got different um, different tables in the database for each semester. So this is for next semesters and just a placeholder entry. So if you want to make changes though to the database, you can log in. Right now we just have two users. We got the basic one for viewing and the admin, but we'll add or in the future they can add a third user just for the sponsor because the sponsor isn't able to delete. So if you enter the password wrong, it tells you it's wrong. You can show the password. But if you type it in correctly, then you can submit it, and now you're logged in as the username. And then it adds this add record button here, as well as the modify and delete button on each record. You go to add record, it brings up this form, this entry form, and you can fill it out. It requires each field except for completed date and these ones because these are just default to 0. And then the status cannot be changed while it's being, because right now it's just being proposed. So after it's proposed, then it can be modified later and into approved or then in progress. You can choose the semester that you want to edit into, start date, completed date, description. So I can just do simple. And do high priority, semester, fall 20, next semester, and then start July for some reason, October, submit. Also, that clear button works. Show that. So whatever you have, you can clear it, resets it, or you can just cancel and then go back. So now, let's see, go back to fall 20 and see the new record I just added. Got the sample one, things in there. Now we can modify it, change it to approved. It's not so high a priority anymore, so we'll lower it. And then we can even switch it to spring. Haven't tested that yet. Probably shouldn't do that. I might break it. All right, and then, yep, so everything's updated. It's approved now. And we can delete it. And make sure that you want to delete it. And okay. And it's gone. So that's pretty much it for the website. Here's a PHP tool that's built in. We've got it's got the structure. Everything is really nice and easy to use. You can structure the table however you want. We've got some columns that aren't included in the form, like the ID, which is auto incrementing, and it's used for as a reference for the file table. Whenever you put files in, it has an ID for the file, a foreign key for the semester, and then a foreign key for the project ID, and then the actual blob of the name of the file and the type of the file. And I think that about sums it up. Does anyone have any questions while I still have the project running?
Will we get to play with this, or is right
Yeah.
now it's just in a case where you have to run it locally, so we would have to install it. Is that right?
Right, you'd have to run it on your own computer. It can be implemented to like being hosted publicly pretty easily. You just have to change a few things in the code on like where it's routing to. But right now it's fully functional. It just doesn't have all the features that originally were desired. So, but yeah, it works right now.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yep.